And so thank you so much for being here. We're going to go over a few things. Again, my name is Tom Smith. I'm the Dean of Teaching and Learning in the high school. We're going to go through a whole bunch of things here. I'm going to take questions at the end, and the questions, if you could just type them in the chat, that would be the best way for this to happen. And I'm going to try to take the questions at the end. Okay, feel free to type them in whenever you have them, I guess, but I probably won't answer them until the end. All right. So let's look at our agenda for today. We're going to talk about the general course of studies, in this, what a typical schedule looks like. We're going to talk about the electives, right? So the only three areas for freshmen that have some variation are the languages, math, fine arts. And then we'll talk about the placement form. We'll talk about some important dates, and then I'll take some questions at the end. All right. So let's get started. So the general course of studies for freshmen is the following. All right. Hopefully you can see it on the screen. Everyone takes Foundations of Faith. It's our first year religion course. Everyone takes English 1. All right. That's our first year English class. Everyone takes Global History 1, everyone takes Biology 1, and everyone takes Health and Wellness. So those 5 classes are the same sort of for everyone. There's no levels. All right. The places where there is some variation. Algebra 1, geometry. So depending on the placement test, that's going to determine what level your son might be in. So Algebra 1 or geometry, there might be some kids in Algebra 2, but not many. And then language, we've got a few choices for language. Again, there are some levels within those choices. We'll go over all that. And then fine arts. There's obviously a lot of choices with fine arts. All right. So that's like the basic. There's like 6 core classes: religion, English, math, social studies, science, language. And then there are some sort of additional courses that are not full year courses, like fine arts and health and wellness. All right. So that's the course of study for freshman year. If you look at the rest of the 3 years, right? So it's grade 10, 11, and 12. I don't want to get too much into the weeds on this today because you don't necessarily need to know this right now. But what I really wanted to emphasize on this slide was, as he gets older, he gets more and more choices. Freshman year, again, there's 4 classes that everyone takes. There's no leveling, there's no choice really. And then as he gets older, he gets more and more opportunities. So basically there's 2 subjects, English and religion, that are a 4-year requirement. He has to take English and religion all 4 years. The other disciplines he has to take for 3 years. All right. So as he gets older, he can double up on a science, the social studies, and math, etc., because it's only a 3-year requirement for those subjects. All right. So I just wanted to make sure that was known. Here is the typical schedule for a freshman. All right. So we have on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, we have 7 periods in the day. The day begins at 8:25 and ends at 2:40. And there's 7 periods for 42 minutes each. All right. And lunch happens during 5th period. You can see from 11:48 to 1:05. That is enough time for both lunch and class. All right. So again, Monday, Tuesday, Friday, it's 42-minute classes. All 6 of his core classes meet. Wednesday and Thursday is a little different. On Wednesday, the first period does not begin until 9:05. All right. And the classes are longer on Wednesday and Thursday. So every class meets 4 out of 5 days. So it doesn't meet on both Wednesday and Thursday. It meets on one of those 2 days. And on Wednesday, there's a late start for students. Again, the first period isn't until 9:05. So the faculty have collaboration time on Wednesday mornings. Of course, the building is open and students can come at the normal time. And a lot of students do that. They'll come and go to the library, they'll go to the cafeteria, whatever it may be. But the first period isn't until 9:05 on Wednesdays. All right. And the classes on those days are 65, 70, 75 minutes. Same thing with Thursday. Thursday has a different start time, 8:35. Again, it's not really it's slightly later start, but it's not like a Wednesday schedule. And again, there are 3 classes there. There's also on Thursday something called activity block or extra help. There's a half an hour period where the whole student body is technically free. So a lot of times they'll meet their activities, their extracurricular clubs, whether it's Model United Nations or, the Black Latino Student Union or whatever it may be. Some of their co-curricular clubs, they will meet during that block. And then some Thursdays, there's just extra help. It's a half an hour where kids can go find their teacher and get some extra help if they need it. There's also something called house meeting on Thursday. So you may or may not be aware, but all the students are placed into one of 12 different houses. All right, each house has about 90 kids in it, and they're from freshman to senior, right? It's sort of vertically aligned, and so they have a house meeting every Thursday, and so their head of house will sort of organize those meetings, and there's like different content that they go through. It depends on the time of year and everything, but that happens on Thursdays. All right, there's also advisory on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. You can see that from 9:12 to 9:22, just for 10 minutes. Every student also has, not only do they have a head of house, but they also have an advisor, a faculty advisor. So they meet with their faculty advisor in small groups for groups with about 10 to 12 kids. It's really just 3 touch points throughout the week where they can check in, talk about different issues that are coming up, make sure they're ready to go for the day, for the week. And so they also have that advisory built into the schedule Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. So that's the typical schedule for freshman year. So this is just a random kid that I pulled up, right? So he's got his biology, his foundations of faith. He's taking his language that he's taking is Latin. He's got English 1, Global History 1, and then Geometry for freshmen. So those are his 6 core classes. And then he's on that G block, you'll see that there's nothing in there. That means he has a free period during G block. Now it's not always G block, right? This is just the kid that I happen to sample. But in that free block, the student can go to the library, the cafeteria, they can try to meet a teacher if the teacher's also free. They can get homework done, that kind of thing. Some kids actually go to the gymnasium, they shoot some baskets for a little while, that kind of thing. Now, I will say in the first semester, the students, that's where they will have health and wellness, is in that free block. During the second semester, that's where they might have their fine art, and I'll go over the fine arts in a minute. But that 7th block is where they're going to have their health and or their fine arts, depending on what they choose. All right, so that's the typical schedule. Let's talk about languages. All right, so there's a 3-year requirement of the same language for every student, and the 3 years must be in the high school. So even if your son is taking the language in his middle school right now, those years in middle school don't count towards that 3-year requirement. So he needs to have 3 years of the same language. And the languages that we offer are shown here: Chinese, French, Latin, and Spanish. Now, every student is going to be played. So basically, we're going to ask you in the placement form which language your son wants. If he's never taken a language before, then he'll just be in level 1 of that language. He doesn't need to take a placement test. If he has prior experience in the language, then if you want him to potentially be placed into level 2 of a language or level 2 honors for the language, then he needs to take a placement test. All right. Our placement in math and language both are based on the placement test. It's not based on the grades that he may or may not have gotten in his prior school. All right. Every school does things a little bit differently. So we like to give everyone a placement test if they want to start somewhere beyond like level 1 of either language or math. All right. So that placement test is June 3rd at 8:30. It's about 45 minutes. So I'll get to the placement form later, but on the placement form, you just acknowledge like, all right, yeah, we're planning on coming on June 3rd, for this language, just so that we can prepare. But yeah, so those are the basic requirements. Now, some kids, might try a brand new language as freshmen, and that's fine. But just know that if they try French, for example, they never had French before, they do have to stick with it for the year, and then they can switch to something else if they want something else. But then if they switch, they have to stick with that new language for 3 years because they need 3 years of the same language. But just keep that in mind. All right, let's talk about math. All right, so like I said before, students are generally placed in Algebra 1 or geometry in some, level or another. One thing that is not shown on here is we do have an Algebra 1 advanced. So Algebra 1 does have 2 levels, the regular level and the advanced level. Geometry has 2 levels, the regular and honors, and then algebra 2. We do have a regular algebra 2, but most freshmen are not in algebra 2 to start with. Almost all of our freshmen are in algebra 1, some are in geometry. What I wanted to show on this slide was that no matter where a student begins their mathematical career at BC High, he has a chance to go to Calculus AP as a senior. So this shows sort of the pathways, freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year for mathematics. And so you can see from this, whether they start in algebra 1, geometry, or geometry honors, they can take a Calculus AP course. All right. So if your son is placed into algebra 1, it doesn't mean he's locked in to a non-honors track for 4 years. All right. It just means that you might have a different path, which is fine. Again, most of our guys are placed in algebra 1. So, you know, that's why we do want kids to take the placement. I was a math teacher for 8 years here at BC High. I taught all the upper level math classes as well as the algebra 1 classes. And I will say that a strong foundation in algebra 1 is really critical to success in math at BC High. When I taught calculus AP and calculus BC, a lot of times students understood the calculus concepts, you know, fairly well, but they would struggle with the algebraic principles in executing a lot of the algebra. So that's why we do have sort of an emphasis on algebra 1, and a lot of our guys do start there. Even guys that are taking a class right now in 8th grade called algebra 1, a lot of those guys will take our placement test and be placed into algebra 1. Because again, not every algebra 1 course is created equal. I know it's the same name, but a lot of times there's differences in how it's taught and the depth at which they go through different topics. So again, a lot of guys, I think it's best for them to be in algebra 1, but a lot of other guys, you know, they take the placement test and they get placed into geometry honors, which is great. So again, if you want your son to be in something other than algebra 1, then he's got to take the placement test on June 3rd at 8:30. Both the math and language tests are on the same day, so it doesn't really matter which one he takes at 8:30. He'll just take both of them back to back. Basically, if he's taking both, a language test and a math test, he'll just come in, you know, say, all right, I want to do math first. He'll do that one, and then when he's finished with that, then he'll do the language one. So they're like roughly 45 minutes each. So that's math. Let's talk about fine arts. So fine arts, all of our core classes, the year-long core classes like English, social studies, math, science, etc., are worth 1 credit. So any full-year course is 1 credit. Our fine arts courses, though, vary in credit. Some of them are a quarter credit, some of them are half, some of them are 3/4. And so our requirement is that students accumulate 1 credit by the end of their senior year. So they have 4 years to accumulate 1 credit in fine arts. A lot of students go above and beyond the 1 credit, right? If they have a passion for it, if they're talented in the arts, they'll go well beyond the 1 credit. But our requirement is 1 credit. And so we do require that freshmen do something freshman year in the fine arts. They can't skip fine arts freshman year. They have to at least start something in fine arts, whether it's a quarter credit, a half credit, or a 3/4 credit. There's a whole bunch of different ways that students can accumulate their arts credit. The amount of credit that a fine arts course earns is totally dependent on how often that class meets, right? So obviously, the more frequently a class meets, the more credit it will be worth, right? The bigger the commitment of the student, the more credit he will earn. So that's basically how it works. So I'm going to go through 3 different sort of buckets of types of fine arts courses that your son can choose from to help you and help him make the decision on what fine arts classes he wants to take. All right, so there's 3 basic types of fine art classes that we offer. Option number 1 is participation in a band or a choir. So these options, these groups, we've got several of them: the concert band, chamber orchestra, jazz rock ensemble, jazz big band, and guitar orchestra, as well as the concert choir and liturgical musicians. These groups meet outside of the 8:25 to 2:40 school day, right? They either meet in the morning before school or they meet after school. All right, so that is definitely something to consider if your son plays an instrument or sings or anything like that. So as you can see from this slide, right, the bands, the concert band, the chamber orchestra, jazz rock, jazz big band, and guitar orchestra, they meet after school, and they meet for the full year after school, two times a week. And so that's why most of those groups get half a credit. The concert band gets a little bit more than half credit. They get 3/4 credit because there are a lot of performances for that group. There are performances for the other groups as well, but not quite as many. So the commitment isn't as strong, you know, except for the concert band. That's has a lot of performances. So again, the chamber orchestra is like, you know, a lot of strings instruments. It's a smaller group. The concert band is a much bigger group. A lot of different instruments in that, the brass and all that stuff. Then of course the jazz bands, and then the guitar orchestra is really just guitar players. So again, that's twice a week all year. So it's like any other full year course, it meets half the time, right? Our full year courses meet 4 times a week all year. These groups meet half of that, right? 2 times a week all year. So you get half credit or 3/4 credit in the case of concert band. Concert choir and liturgical musicians, they meet before school for the full year. So they meet twice a week in the mornings, so around 7:30. So again, that's something that your son wants to consider. He's got to be able to get here at 7:30 in the morning. The liturgical musicians group, they perform at all of our school-wide masses, all of our liturgies. They meet twice a week in the morning, and that's for half credit. The concert choir meets twice a week, and they get 3/4 credit because they have a lot of performances throughout the year at various places. But again, no experience is necessary for the concert choir and liturgical musicians. For the other groups, there is kind of an audition for the instrumental groups, the bands. You do need prior experience for those groups, but for the singing, they don't. You know, the director of the concert choir will want to hear your son's voice just to see what group he should be in, whether he's like a bass or a tenor, etc. But it's not an audition to see if he's like good enough to be in the choir. But for the concert band, there is like an audition at the beginning of the school year to make sure that, you know, you don't have to be an expert or anything, but he's got to have some ability to play an instrument. So anyway, that's one option, right? Is to participate in some of these before or after school groups. A second option is we have 2 foundations classes. These are for students who have a particular aptitude or passion for either the visual arts or the theater arts. Now, these classes meet during the school day, like any other class, but they meet every day, but only for second semester. So these are worth half a credit. All right, like I said, our regular classes meet all year, every 4 days a week. That's 1 credit. These meet 4 days a week, but only for half the year, only for second semester. So visual foundations does require like a sample of artwork from the student to take it, right? This is for students who have a passion and have some ability. They don't have to be, again, they don't have to be perfect artists or anything, but they have to have some ability. And this course is excellent. It's going to really set students up for success in future arts classes. If a student takes visual foundations, usually that sets them up to take some of our honors arts classes, even the AP art classes. So that's something to consider if your son has a passion for the arts. We also have theater foundations, which is for students who are really into acting and putting on productions and, you know, directing and all that stuff, script writing, all that stuff. Is the theater foundations class would be perfect for him. Now, that does not require any sort of audition or demonstration of ability. The visual foundation does, you know, you could take a picture of some of his art and email it to Pat McAllister. His email address is on the screen, mcallister@bchigh.edu. Or you could bring a sample to the placement test on June 3rd. You know, if you think visual foundations would be a great option for him. Again, they are excellent classes, but the requirement or the commitment is a little bit more because it meets more frequently in the second semester. The third option are the quarter credit classes. So these meet 2 times a week for second semester. So basically it meets a quarter of the time of a regular class. These are all introductory courses. No prior experience is necessary. We have some in the visual arts, like intro to drawing and digital photography. We have some in theater, like acting, stagecraft, and script writing. And we have some music performance ones like guitar and piano, as well as hand chimes in a singing class called Voice Studio. So for the guitar and piano, no prior experience is required, but your son would need access to a guitar or a piano at home if he were to take these classes, because he needs to be able to practice when he's at home. So those are musical performance classes. There are also music classes that are not performance based. They're just, listening to and studying music. Excuse me. So that first one there is bebop to hip hop and pop. It's a history of music in America. There's music production and history. That's using a lot of electronic apps and stuff like that, like GarageBand and other things to make music. There's understanding music through listening. So that's like interpreting music. And then there's a new class that we're offering this year called Music for Media. So that's music for movies, television, video games, that kind of thing. So music for media. Again, those four are not performance-based classes. Again, so that's a lot of information I just threw at you. If you think about the fine arts, right? Like there's a whole bunch of different ways to accumulate that 1 credit. Again, the 1 credit is over 4 years, not just freshman year. So a lot of kids will do a quarter credit class each school year. So they might do intro to drawing freshman year, and then sophomore year, they might do music production and history. And then junior year, maybe they'll do stagecraft, or, they'll do a different quarter credit class each year. And that's how they get their 1 credit. Some kids will do, one of these foundations classes. They'll do visual foundations freshman year, and then sophomore year, maybe they'll do, architectural drawing or drawing and design honors or something like that. And that's how they'll get their 1 credit. There are tracks they can follow. Like if a kid takes digital photography freshman year, then maybe sophomore year, he takes advanced digital photography honors. And then junior year, he takes, digital filmmaking. A lot of these classes do lead to other classes in the same sort of arts discipline, whether it's the visual, musical, or theater arts. So again, I would recommend that you look on the course catalog for deeper descriptions of these classes. I'll show you where the course catalog is, but think about what he might want to do. Again, it doesn't lock him into a track for 4 years, but he could go that way. He could mix it up every year. I do want to make sure that it's understood how the different choices affect the schedule. So if you look back at this is the student schedule I showed at the beginning. So first semester, they don't have anything in that extra block, right? They have their 6 core classes and that extra free block. The only thing they might have in there, or they're going to have in there, is health and wellness first semester. All right. So they're going to have a free period, maybe not every day, but 2 out of the 4 days, they'll probably have a free period. And the other days they might have health. Second semester, if they take one of those quarter credit classes, like intro to drawing, like this student here is taking intro to drawing. So again, only for second semester, 2 of his free periods in a week disappear, and that's where he's got intro to drawing. He still has 2 other free periods. All right. So that's what that would look like if he's taking a quarter credit class. If he takes a half credit class, like one of the foundations classes, you can see here, he does not have a free period second semester because he's taking a half credit visual foundations class. All right. So you can kind of see how that impacts his schedule, depending on what fine art he's taking. And then if he's doing one of the bands or choirs that have morning or afternoon rehearsals, he'll have his free periods the whole year. First semester, he will have health for part of his free periods, but second semester, he'll have free periods. Again, he'll have to come into school early in the morning twice a week, or stay later for twice a week, 2 times a week, all year, all right, to get the half credit or 3/4 credit for those groups. But he'll have the free periods during the day. One question we get a lot of is, if he wants to do an after-school performance group like concert band or chamber orchestra or whatever it might be, won't that conflict with sports or other clubs? And the answer is sometimes, yeah. Like sometimes there is a conflict there. I know with concert band, for example, in order to earn credit for concert band, the students need to participate at least in 2 out of the 3 seasons. So there are 3 athletic seasons in the high school, right? There's fall season, winter, and spring. Say he's a soccer player and he thinks he might make the soccer team as a freshman. So maybe fall semester or the fall season, he doesn't do concert band. But then after the soccer season's over, then he can join the concert band for winter and spring and earn credit that way. But he has to do at least 2 out of the 3 seasons. Some groups have more flexibility than others. It all really depends on the needs of the group and how many kids they have. They can't really have guys going in and out of the group all the time if the group is smaller, right? Because the group can't function as well if certain key instruments are missing. And I'll give you the contact information for the directors of those groups if you have more specific questions about them, because I can answer general questions about them, but they would be the best ones to answer your questions about the after school rehearsals and stuff like that. That is a common question sometimes. All right. I mentioned the course catalog. The course catalog is posted on the new student website. And I'll show you, I'll put the link up for that a little bit later, but hopefully you've been on the new student website. It was in the email I sent out about the information about this webinar. So definitely check out that website because it has the essentials guide, it has the placement form, and it has the course catalog. But in the course catalog, you'll see descriptions for all of our classes, but in particular for the fine arts classes that are available for freshmen. All right, you can get a general sense for what the class is from the title, but there's a much deeper descriptions in the course catalog that might help you make his decision. Let's talk about the placement form. All right, the placement form is online. All right, so it's an online submission. I've gotten a few already, which is great, but it's due by Friday, April 28th. The website for the form is posted right there, bchigh.edu/high school-language-selection. All right, so if you go to that website and you fill out the form, I'll go through the form right now. So the first thing he needs to do is obviously enter his first and last name. We do need his t-shirt size. He's going to get a t-shirt for his house, whatever house he's assigned, which he'll learn later on. And then his hometown and current school. All right. And then if we continue scrolling down on the form, the first thing is the fine arts choice. So it's broken down into those three different buckets. The first bucket are the choirs and the bands, right? The groups that meet before or after school. Just check off which one he wants, if that's what he wants to do. The next bucket is the foundations classes. You'll see at the top of the screen here. Check off one of those two if he's interested in one of those. And then the third bucket are these quarter credit classes, of which we will ask for his top four choices. So like, you know, his first choice, second choice, third choice, and fourth choice. For those, just for those quarter credit ones. And you can see that these are drop downs, right? The first drop down is acting, right? That's just alphabetical. So you just use the drop down menu and choose what his first choice is, the second choice, the third choice, and fourth choice. Most of the time, we can get everyone their first choice, but occasionally there are scheduling issues, or if there's not enough kids that sign up for it, then we can't run a class that only has like a couple kids in it, right? So we do need his second, third, fourth choice. Again, he should only be choosing things in one of those three buckets, right? Either he's doing a before or after school group, he's doing a foundations class, or he's doing a quarter credit class. He shouldn't be doing, you know, multiple of those. All right. It won't be possible in his schedule. All right. So that's the fine arts part of the placement. The language choice. So here, again, we're just going to ask for his first choice, second choice, third choice, and fourth choice. Again, most kids are going to get their first choice language. But just in case there's any scheduling issues, we need his backup choices. But yeah, it's pretty simple on the form. You just go down and, you know, check off which one is his first, second, third, and fourth choice. After that, you need to indicate to us whether or not your son is going to come take the placement test in either the language or in math. So just check off on this part of the form, just check off which language he's going to take a test for and whether or not he's going to take the math placement test. Again, if your son is okay, if it makes the most sense for him to be in level 1 of whatever language he wants and with algebra 1, then there's no need to take a placement test. Just leave this part blank and just hit submit. So that's really it for the placement form. That's, again, due by April 28th. You know, it's fairly simple. Let me know if you have any questions. My email is on there. This is, you know, my contact information here. tsmith@bchigh.edu is my email. You know, again, once it gets closer to that date, you know, maybe we'll send some reminders as well, to make sure everyone gets that placement form in so we can start scheduling. All right, a couple other things. This is that new student website. We've got the website is listed right there. bchigh.edu/enrollment/new students. Click grade 9, and then you'll see a whole bunch of information there. There's the essentials guide, which hopefully you've taken a look at. It's got the preliminary calendar for the school year. It's got the checklist of things that have to be done. technology information, some help forms, information about the placement test. The course catalog is also on this website. Information about orientation, which is going to be June 12th or 13th, not both. Exact timing is to be determined. It's probably going to be done by house. He'll be placed into a house by then. And then there's another orientation on August 31st, in which case, at that point, he will go through his schedule and actually meet some of the teachers. And then the school day, the first day of the school year starts after the Tuesday after Labor Day. Let's see here. Oh yeah, all right. So a couple recommendations for technology. We are a bring your own device school. So most guys have a laptop or an iPad. Not to say that those are the only two things that he can choose. But they have, whatever it is that he has to have at least 128 gigs of storage. If he does get an iPad, make sure it's a Wi-Fi iPad, not like one that has cellular on it. So that he's not on, we don't want him to be on like the Verizon network or we want him to make sure that he needs to use our Wi-Fi when he's here in the building. Excuse me, and if he's using an older iPad, it can't be anything more than 2 years old. Again, most guys, we've seen a lot more laptops than iPads lately, especially the older guys. The juniors and seniors, a lot of those guys have laptops instead of iPads. iPads are still popular, but I think people try to figure out like, all right, if I'm going to buy something that maybe he can use beyond high school, maybe a laptop's better. I don't know. But again, he does have to have a device. And I think we're going to do another webinar just on technology a little while later. But these are the basics for the technology. Summer offerings, we got a whole bunch of stuff going on here over the summer. Some warm-up classes, getting ready for school. We've got some other specialty clinics, like some coding stuff. We got tons of sports camps. I used to coach the summer basketball camp. It's a great way to meet kids before their freshman year. Get familiar with the building, with the campus. So definitely go to that website there that's listed at the bottom, bchi.edu/education/summer programs. Again, there's a lot going on all the time. So definitely check that out. Couple more reminders of the dates, right? April 28th, that placement form is due. In early May, you'll get an email from me that will give you access to our website, which is called MyBC High. You'll get like a username and a password. June 3rd is that placement test. The 12th and 13th is freshman orientation. And then in July and August, there's a chance to purchase the T-Pass as well as device setup sessions. So we're going to put out more information about exactly when those device setup sessions will be. The basic way it'll be set up is you'll get a chance to sign up for an appointment. You'll come in with your son and with the device he will be using on campus. And we will get it all set up for him. Get him on the Wi-Fi, get his email set up, purchase his textbooks, a lot of which might be digital. We'll do all that stuff in person, which would be terrific. Again, we'll put out more information on how to sign up for one of those. That'll be in the summertime. All right, let's take some questions. Let's see here. All right. So if you have questions about anything that I've shared here, just please type them in the chat feature, and I'll try my best to answer them. All right, I don't see anybody typing at the moment. Okay, here's a question. Can you explain more about the Algebra 1 Honors option? All right, so it's not actually Algebra 1 Honors, it's Algebra 1 Advanced. So basically what we have found in our experience is students take the placement test, and a lot of guys get placed in Algebra 1, some in geometry, and then there are some guys that are not quite ready for geometry, but also are still pretty good in algebra. And so, guys might be, for part of the year anyway, they might be a little bit like, oh, I've seen this before. I don't need this, but they're also they don't have everything down, right? They might not have factoring down or some of the radicals and stuff like that.
And so what we found we might need is like another little level in there for Algebra 1 that for guys that are actually pretty good at algebra, but just, haven't covered enough of the factoring and the radicals and stuff like that. So that's why we this year we're going to build in an Algebra 1 advanced. Just to kind of give those guys who aren't quite ready for geometry, but are probably, pretty decent at algebra, a chance to go where they'll feel challenged and all that. So again, all that is based on the placement test. Again, our goal is to put kids in the best place for them to do well, while also challenging them. And as a former math teacher, we do emphasize strengths in Algebra 1. It really does set up their math experience in a lot of ways. So yeah, that's really all I can tell you right now about the Algebra 1 honors, or it's not honors, it's advanced, Algebra 1 advanced. Let's see here. A question about the piano class. What is the piano course like? Is it a group? Yeah. So the piano class is very small. We've got 6 or 7, they're electric pianos that we have here. And so there's 6 or 7 folks in the class. And then, so again, the students need access to a keyboard at home so they can practice. But anywhere from, a few, 2 or 3 guys up to 6 or 7 in a class. We'll have a few sections of it probably. But it's with our choir director, actually. She teaches the choir, she directs the choir as well as teaches the piano class. Let's see here. Here's a question. Is it graded? How is it graded? Yeah. So, there is a grade. A lot of the grades in the arts classes are based on effort and participation, especially the groups that don't require any prior experience, like the concert choir and liturgical musicians. Actually, frankly, a lot of those after school groups too, like the grade that they get, they do get a grade, but a lot of it is based on their effort and participation. It's about showing up every day, making sure they're there and trying their best. A lot of the art classes are based like that, or graded like that. Someone's asking to go back to the schedule page. Happy to do so. All right, so here is the typical schedule. Happy to talk more about this if there's is there any specific questions about the schedule? Question, why does the schedule shift daily? Yeah, so part of it is, we don't want the same classes to be every day at the same time. Because the experience of those courses depends, frankly, like if a student has first period biology every day, that might impact their experience of that course versus, and also they have English or history during lunch, right after lunch or right before lunch every day, that impacts their experience. Same thing last period every day is the same course, or, it's to spread that impact out so that, it does this Monday, Tuesday, Friday basically does just rotate down one block basically. And then the Wednesday, Thursdays, it's mixed up a little bit more, but yeah, you're right. It is confusing at first. And it'll take the kids, to go through in one cycle before they master it. But, guys will have their schedule, a picture of it right on their iPad so they can make sure. And again, they'll pick it up pretty quickly, but it is confusing when you look at it and you're not used to it. During the blank spaces in the schedule, can students access executive function tutoring through the school? Yeah. So yeah, great question. During their free periods, yes, we have an academic resource center that students can use. And sometimes we have kids that are assigned into the academic resource center during their free periods. So they can go get executive functioning help. They can get tutoring from either a tutor or a peer. They can work with some of our specialists that are in there. We've got 3 or 4 specialists in the academic resource center. So yes, that's exactly what those free periods are for. Some guys just go in there, they just get homework done. It's a space designed for everybody, not just students who might have, executive functioning issues or learning differences or whatever it may be. Excuse me, it's designed for everybody, but that's exactly what the students can do during those free periods. I think I might have missed the question. Was there an after-school schedule page? No, the after-school experience here is, it really depends on the kid, right? If a kid is on a sports team, the freshman practices generally start at 3 o'clock. The day ends at 2:40. They have a few minutes to gather their stuff, go to the locker room, get changed, etc. Then they have practice at 3. Sometimes they've got clubs that meet after school. Sometimes the clubs meet during that activity block on Thursdays. Sometimes kids will go and they'll meet with a teacher for extra help. They might go to the academic resource center after school. They might go, we've got a bunch of other things they could do. They could do some of our service activities like the St. Louis Project, where they go into downtown Boston and they bring food for, folks who are without a home and stuff like that. So, there's the after school experience is really different, depending on what your son is interested in and what he's doing. So here's another question about the specific support in the ARC. Yeah, so there are certain like accommodations, so to speak, that students get. Yeah, there is sort of an application period for that. All that information is in the essentials guide. Depending on what type of accommodation you're seeking for him, that depends on, or like that's the amount of what we need to see, whether it's like a neuropsych test or any kind of other educational testing. All that stuff, it depends on what type of support he's seeking, but all that stuff is in the essentials guide. And I can also share some information or some email addresses for you to contact if you want more direct information about that. But again, there are kids that go in there that are not assigned to be in there. They're in there just because it's a good space to get work done or ask for help when they need it. Couple more questions here. Yeah, basketball tryouts are in the winter. Yes. So basketball, all the winter sports tryouts, whether it's basketball, hockey, indoor track, etc., wrestling, all those tryouts for winter, the tryouts are the Monday after Thanksgiving break. And there's a question about what, if the athletics clash with other after school activities. Yeah, sometimes that does happen. In some of the arts groups, they have some flexibility and some of them aren't as flexible, right? So, a lot of them are, okay, you have to participate in the band for 2 out of the 3 athletic seasons to get credit. So there is some flexibility, but it's not always perfect. And let me put in the chat here for everybody. So John Bean is our band director. He is at J Bean. I'm typing this in the chat right now. He's our band director, J Bean at bchata.edu. He would be the best person to answer questions about the bands, like the jazz bands, the concert band, the chamber. No, not chamber, but the jazz band and the concert band. And then the other guy is for their other groups. Yeah, here's the chamber guy. His email, I'm typing his email address right now. So yeah, he would best be able to answer questions about James Hazelwood Dale. He's the chamber orchestra guy. He would best be able to answer questions about the chamber orchestra and the guitar orchestra. Okay, they'll have all the information about auditions and conflicts with things and stuff like that. There's another question here about daily mass. There is, all right, there's different types of masses, right? So there's mass in the mornings in our chapel that are available. I'm pretty sure there is a mass every day at 7:45. But then there's also, we have like once a month, we have like school-wide masses where everyone has to go that are like compulsory, basically, like where we, in the middle of the school day, we have a different schedule for that day, and all the kids, they're supposed to wear a shirt and tie, and they go, they come down, everybody goes to the gymnasium, and it's a huge thing. It's awesome. So we have those at least once a month. We also have daily mass in our chapel, which is again optional. It's available. Some of our faculty go every day. Some students go every day. So it is there. Yeah, and some kids do serve, right? We definitely have altar servers for our school-wide masses. For the daily masses, we don't typically have servers there just because there aren't as many people, necessary for there to be altar servers. The masses in the morning are quick, they're like 15, 20 minutes. The school-wide masses are much bigger, right? There's a big production. There's, 1,500 people there. Yeah, so those things are available. Let's see, what else? Let me put the email. Yeah, if a student wants to get involved with altar serving, they can talk to like our folks at campus ministry. There's a liturgy committee
that definitely, kind of spends time. I don't know if they meet once a week or once a month, but they kind of talk about our masses and stuff like that. Let me put up a couple other, contact information here. So Mary Lee Bennett, she is the, ARC director, the Academic Resource Center director. And so she is at mbennett@bci.edu. And then, probably the best person for like campus ministry would be John Mark. He, he's our, director of our Center for Ignatian Mission and Identity, or Ignatian Formation. So, let me just confirm his email address. It's either Mark or J Mark. Let me just double check really quick. My apologies. Let's see here. I just want to give you the right. Yeah, J Mark. Oh yeah. So, J Mark at BCI. So he's our. Whoops, that's supposed to be for everybody. J Mark. All right. .edu. And then, yeah, so some of our parents generally are not, there's a question here about, do parents get involved with school ministry? Not as much. We do definitely have a parent advisory, not advisory group, but a parent association, I should say. Sometimes they may be involved in a mass here and there, but it's not like their primary function, I guess. So our Parents Association is, I think right now, Colleen Carter might be the best person. I'll put her information there, Parents Association. So she kind of oversees that, and she works with parents. We've got, there's sort of like, folks who have been like elected to they're like the president of the Parents Association, or, stuff like that. So there is a lot of parent involvement, which is great. Let's see, any other questions coming through here? Again, we'll do another webinar on April 24th. It'll be the same sort of presentation that I did here and the one I did yesterday. I'll put this recording up on the website. Can we get the chat notes? Oh yeah. Maybe I can, maybe I'll even post the chat notes or have them emailed. Yeah, I could do that. That's something we can do for sure. But yeah, again, we'll do another one of these. Feel free to watch it again or review it. On the new student website is where the things are posted. Where all the new student stuff is posted. But if there aren't any more questions, I hope everyone has a great weekend. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope it was at least somewhat helpful. I hope it, if you have any other questions, feel free to email me at tsmith. I'll put my email address up there as well. tsmith@bci.edu. Feel free to email with any questions. Happy to talk to you about it. And if I don't have the answer, I'll direct you where the answer can be found. And again, hope everyone has a great rest of your day and a great weekend. All right, take care.
Thank you.